Welcome in. It's another weekend of European soccer action, and it's one of the last full weekends of European soccer action as we have the international break coming up. This weekend, I've created 4 different parlays coming from 11 different games in the EPL, the Bundesliga, Serie A, and La Liga. So let's get into it, and if you like these stats and find the videos helpful, please subscribe to the channel and give the video a like to help grow the channel. Let's start in the first parlay. In Germany, with the Bundesliga, it's Heidenheim and Borussia Monchengladbach. These teams are side by side in the table with Heidenheim 11 with 28 points, Gladbach 12th with 27. Neither of them are in good form. Heidenheim lost away to Augsburg last week 1-0. They're 0-1-3 in their last 4. That was just the second time they failed to score, though, in 13 games. At home, they scored in 10 of 12 Bundesliga games this season, and that includes scoring against Frankfurt and Leverkusen in recent games. No reason they can't continue that trend versus Gladbach, who's allowed 49 goals, and they've conceded the 3rd most goals in the Bundesliga. Gladbach, they gave up 3 last week to Cologne, a team that usually struggles to score. They gave up 2 more midweek to a lower-tier side, Saarbrücken in the Pokal. They allow the 2nd most shots on target as well in the Bundesliga. Gladbach has 1 win in 9. They only have 2 wins in 13. On the road, they are winless in 10 games in all competitions, and they have just 1 road clean sheet in their last 13. Oddly, they did come against Leverkusen, one of the best teams in Europe, but in all of those road games, both teams to score has also gone 11-2. In goals per match, overall, Gladbach is the 2nd highest. Their games see 3.8 goals per match. That's the 2nd highest, and they're also 2nd highest in over 2.5 totals, going 20-5 to the over. These teams played twice within 3 days in October. Gladbach won 2-1 in the Bundesliga and 3-1 in the Pokal. Both of those coming at home. Now they'll be on the road. In the Bundesliga, both have seen some of the most both teams to score games this season. Gladbach's games, seeing that prop hit the 2nd most times, 76%. Heidenheim tied for the 4th most at 68%. I don't trust either to keep a clean sheet. Both capable of scoring. Let's go both teams to score. And pair that with one more, both teams to score. In Germany, it's Hoffenheim and Stuttgart. Stuttgart are fighting for top 4. They're 3rd with 53 points. Hoffenheim, they're fighting for the Europa League spots. They're 7th with 33 points. And it's actually pretty amazing, though, that Hoffenheim is even fighting it for that high up in the table, being 7th, considering they lost 3-1 to Frankfurt last week, and they have just 3 wins across their last 16 Bundesliga games. 2 did come before that Frankfurt game, though, where they did win 2-1 and 3-2, so they do have some recent wins under their belt. And scoring is usually something they do manage to do, whether they win or lose. They've scored in 23 of 25 games this season, and in 16 of 17 last home Bundesliga games going back into last year. And what else has happened in 16 of those last 17 home games? Their opponents have scored a goal as well. So obviously, both teams to score has been a very common trend in Hoffenheim games. It will likely happen again here, that being at least them conceding. Stuttgart are the league's 3rd highest scorers. They're the 2nd highest team in XG, and Hoffenheim gave up the 3rd most shots on target. Stuttgart won 2-0 last week, and they're 6-1-1 in their past 8. Their only loss is away to Leverkusen in the Pokal, 3-2. They scored a goal in 8 straight, but they've also conceded a goal in 9 of 10. When these teams last met, Hoffenheim won 3-2 in Stuttgart in October. Prior to that, the scores were 1-1, 2-2, 2-1 Hoffenheim, 3-1 Stuttgart. Both teams' scores hit in 7 of the last 8 games. I think that should happen again here. It's hit in nearly every Hoffenheim game, with that prop hitting in 88% of their games this season. Let's go both teams to score. We'll pair those both teams to scores together and get plus 138 odds. Parlay number 2, let's go over to England in the EPL, starting with Luton Town and Nottingham Forest. It's a short weekend of EPL games as there are FA Cup games, so all those teams that are still remaining will be playing in the FA Cup, but we do have a few EPL games. Let's look at Luton Town and Nottingham Forest. It's a battle of 2 teams that are possibly fighting for that last survival spot, with Luton being 18th, 21 points, Nottingham 17th with 24 points. Now, Luton come in with less rest, having played on Wednesday, and they blew a huge chance to cut that lead that Forest has on them. They were up 3-0 away to Bournemouth, only to concede in the 50th, the 62nd, the 64th, and the 83rd minute, and went on to cough up that 3-goal lead and lose 4-3. In all competitions, Luton is now winless in 8, and those are mostly all losses, as they're 0-2-6, and they've been outscored 27-15. But still, that's a ton of goals, so we don't need to worry about them winning. Let's just look at goals markets here. Over 2.5 is 7-1 in that time, and it's 10-1 in Luton games going further back. Both teams to score bets have gone a perfect 8-0, and both teams to score an over 2.5 bets have gone 7-1. At least Luton is scoring, even though they're not winning. They've done so in 12 straight and in 13 of 14 home EPL games this season. In the earlier matchup between these two in October, there was goals when it was 2-2. This could very well be both teams to score again. But then if we look at Nottingham Forest, they have been shut out 1-0 in back-to-back games versus Liverpool and Brighton in the EPL, and they have 3 straight 1-0 losses if you count the FA Cup. They have just 2 wins in 11. They've conceded a goal in 12 of 14 road EPL games, plus in 9 straight away. If you were looking for a single bet, you have to look at goals, maybe both teams to score. Both teams scored over 2.5, possibly a Luton win. But in these very conservative parlays, just ask Luton to score a goal. Next in the EPL, it's Fulham and Nottingham. Fulham lost away to Wolves 2-1 last week, but they had won 3 of 4 games prior to that. They've now scored in 6 straight. Both teams to score is 5-1, over 2.5 is 6-0 in their last games. At home, they've scored in 13 of 19 across all competitions this season. Spurs are coming off a 4-0 thrashing of Villa last week, and they won 3-1 in the game prior. They've now scored 7 goals in their last 2 games. As has been the case with Tottenham games all season, their games see goals. Their 3.6 goals per match in their games is the second most, behind Newcastle's 3.8. They've seen the most over 2.5 games at 22 and 5, and 26 of 27 have gone at least over 1.5 as well. Tottenham have scored in 29 of 30 in all competitions this season, but last week's clean sheet was only their 3rd clean sheet across their last 20 games. Both teams scored over 2.5, has gone 5-1. Simply over 2.5 has gone 6-0. Tottenham would have won 2-0 at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in October, and they drew 1-1 in Fulham. Fulham winning in PKs in the League Cup back in August. With how both of these teams are playing right now, Spurs will also be missing key defender Mickey van de Ven. I think there should be goals coming from both teams here, so let's do both teams to score in this game. And we'll round it out in La Liga with Getafe and Girona. Getafe lost 1-0 in Valencia last week. They beat Valencia 1-0 on December 8th. Now, in between those 2 Valencia results, every other Getafe game has seen at least 2 goals scored. They're winless in 4 after that Valencia loss. They had a 3-3 draw with Las Palmas, a 4-0 loss to Barcelona, and a 1-1 draw with Villarreal prior to that. At home, Getafe scored in 7 of their last 9 Liga games, including 3 goals in back-to-back home games of late. At 3.3 goals per match, Girona games average just below Villarreal's 3.5 for the most goals per game in La Liga. And after a blazing start to start the season, which saw them score in 21 of 22 games in all competitions, they had just 1 loss in their first 25. Girona has fallen off in recent weeks. They're now just 3-1-4 in their last 8. They've also failed to score a goal in 3 of their past 6. Girona won 3-0 at home earlier this season, and last year when these teams last played. And last year, both home teams won as well. Girona winning 2-1 and Getafe 3-2. So there's been a lot of goals between these teams. I think we can see where this is going. Let's follow that trend, and you could possibly go both teams to score. I'm just going to ask for at least 2 or more goals here. Girona is scoring. Their scoring might be down, but they're still always capable of scoring. Getafe has just 1 clean sheet in their last 10 games. They just gave up 3 goals to a team that rarely scores many goals in Las Palmas in their last home game. They've also given up 2 to the likes of Vigo, 3 to Osasuna, and also to Sevilla in that time. I'm just going to be simple here and go over 1.5 because Getafe, Girona over 1.5, Fulham, Tottenham, both teams to score, and Luton simply to score will get us some plus money at plus 147. Move on to another parlay starting in Germany, Wolfsburg and Augsburg. The home team, Wolfsburg, are 13th with 25 points. They're hosting 9th place Augsburg with 32 points. It's Augsburg, though, who are in the better form as well. They just won 1-0 over Heidenheim last week, 6-0 over Darmstadt before that, and 2-1 over Freiburg before that. The road clean sheet though against Darmstadt was their first road clean sheet in 26 games in all competitions, so that's not something we should expect to happen again. Wolfsburg have been in terrible form right now. They're winless in 10 games. They were shut out last week 2-0 in Leverkusen. They have scored in 9 of 11 games, and the 2 where they didn't score in that time both came on the road. They'll be at home here. Both teams scored 8-2 in that time as well. Wolfsburg have scored in 14 of 15 home Bundesliga games going back to last season as well. It was 3-2 playing in Augsburg in October, and last year their score lines were 2-2 and 1-1. So we've seen goals between these teams. Wolfsburg, win or lose, is usually good for a goal, especially at home. Let's just ask Wolfsburg to score. Both teams to score is certainly an option that could get you some better odds as well. Next, in Germany, Darmstadt and Bayern Munich. All-time, Bayern is 9-1-0 against this team, but most of those results were many, many years ago. The only recent meeting was in October, and it was a massacre for Bayern Munich, winning 8-0. Kane had a hat-trick, Sané had 2, Musiala had 2, and Muller had 1. Now this game, it's unlikely to replicate that. It's probably not going to be 8-0 again, but Darmstadt haven't won a game since October 7th, and they're coming off 2-0 and 6-0 losses to Leipzig and Augsburg and have just 2 goals across their last 7 games. Bayern may not win the title this season, But they did just actually score 8 goals again last week, thrashing Mainz 8-1. They won 3-0 versus Lazio, drew Freiburg 2-0, and beat Leipzig 2-1 as well in recent games. Anything other than a convincing Bayern Munich win would be quite shocking. Darmstadt gave up the highest XGA and the most shots on target as well. This should be another long day. Betting it by yourself, by itself, you could go Bayern to win by 2 or 3 or 4. That would probably be a good bet, but we're just going to ask Bayern to score at least 2 goals in this parlay. Sevilla and Celta Vigo. Celta kept things close with Real Madrid last week, only down 1-0 until the 79th minute. But the final score will show 4-0 as they conceded in the 88th and 94th minute. Also note that 2 of those last 3 goals were own goals as well. So had they not put the ball in their own net, maybe that score would have been a little bit closer. But still, that was enough to cost Rafa Benitez his job. He's replaced with B-team boss Claudio Giraldes. Celta Vigo still has just 2 wins in 9, and their last 3 road games have been that 4-0 loss, a 2-2 draw to Cadiz, and a 3-0 loss to Getafe. After a dismal start for Sevilla, they've sparked to life. They're 3-3-1 in their last 7, and they've scored 5 goals in their last 2 games. But even when things were going bad, they were usually always good for a goal, especially when playing at home, something they've done in 15 of 17 home games across all competitions. If you look back at previous head-to-heads between these teams, they've tied each of the last 4, 1-1, 2-2, 1-1, 2-2. Sevilla are also undefeated versus Celta Vigo in 7. They've not failed to score against them at home since way back in 2013. Sevilla is definitely the team on the upswing right now. If you were betting it by yourself, I'd probably look to Sevilla to win. But we do have a possible new coach bounce here in Celta Vigo. I do think at least Sevilla should get 1 goal. It's going to be a very simple parlay. Sevilla to score, Wolfsburg to score, Bayern to score at least 2 at -129. And the final parlay will all come from the Serie A in Italy, all on Sunday, starting with Roma and Sassuolo. Roma were in Europa League action on Thursday, but they had a huge 4-0 lead over Brighton from Ligue 1. And in Ligue 2, they lost 1-0, but they'll still go on to advance 4-1 on aggregate there. In Serie A, Roma are 5th. After their Europa League result, they have just 2 losses in 13 games, and they had scored in 13 straight prior to that Brighton game, which they really didn't need to win. Sassuolo are facing a relegation struggle. They won last week, but they are just 19th, and that win came versus 18th Frosinone. Big step up this week on the road against Roma. That was their first win in 8 games, just their second in 16, and both of those came at home. Away from home in Serie A, they're 2-2-10. They've been outscored 30-15. Overall, Sassuolo was winless in 9 road games, and they lost 7 straight away in all competitions. Roma took a 2-1 win in Sassuolo earlier this season, but Sassuolo won 4-3 in Roma last year. This fixture does usually see goals. The recent scorelines have been 2-1, 4-3, 1-1, 2-2, 2-1, and 2-2. So you could back some goals in this way. Maybe it's Roma to win and both teams to score. But also when you look at some of those scorelines, Sassuolo had been a much stronger team that usually scored way more goals in previous years than they have this year. So for me, let's just play it easy and go Roma to win at home. They should thrash the Sassuolo team. Verona and AC Milan. Milan, too, were playing in the Europa League on Thursday, and they also had a lead from Ligue 1. Not quite as big as the Roma League, but they did win Ligue 1 4-2 and on that scoreline in Ligue 1. And Thursday in Ligue 2, they won 3-1 versus Slavia Praha and got to play most of that game a man up as their opponents took a red card. So they should be relatively fresh as they can be, having played on Thursday, but not having to push themselves too hard. AC Milan may not catch Inter for the title, but they are still second, while Verona are 14th. In all competitions, AC Milan has just 3 losses in 20 games, and they now scored in 26 straight. Verona are off back-to-back 1-0 wins, but those did come over Lecce and Sassuolo. And while maybe they keep this game close with the extra rest and playing at home, it's an unlikely feat for them to get 3 straight clean sheets. It was a narrow 1-0 AC Milan win, though, back in September. AC Milan is 8-2-0 versus Verona in their last 10. They've scored in all 10, and they scored multiple goals in 6 of their last 10. Surely AC Milan should win this game. Most definitely, they should at least score a goal. Atalanta and Fiorentina, yet another team we're targeting here who also has a short week. Although in this case, both teams had a short week. For Atalanta, they were playing in the Europa League on Thursday. They were tied 1-1 with Sporting heading into Leg 2, and they won 2-1 on Thursday to advance. Atalanta's form has fallen off in recent weeks, this being their first win in their last 6 games, but they've still scored in 14 of 15 and in 15 straight at home. Fiorentina played Thursday as well in the Europa Conference League versus Maccabi Haifa and drew 1-1. but after winning 4-3 in Leg 1, they will also advance to the next round. They're in good form. They're undefeated in 6, but they've still allowed a goal in 11 of 12 and in 9 of 11 recent road games. These two are nearly side by side on the table. Atlanta 6th, 47 points. Fiorentina 8th with 43 points. And while some of the past score lines have been lower scoring, it was a shootout in September with Fiorentina winning 3-2 at home. In the last 14 meetings, Atalanta has only failed to score versus Fiorentina once, and they've never failed to do so at home in that time. This could be close. We do have two teams that could be a little tired. Atlanta's at home. Atalanta always scores. Let's go Atalanta to score. Atalanta to score. AC Milan to score. Roma to win. Just about even money at minus 107 over at Caesars. Those are my picks. What are yours? There's plenty of other games going on this weekend. Be sure to drop your best picks, upsets, parlays, anything you want down there in the comments. Follow the channel for more soccer picks, and good luck with all of your bets this weekend.